everybody, and welcome once again to In the Warzone. I'm Warzone Prez, your host. This week we're going to continue our discussion of early game controllers, and all bundled into one, I'm going to give you a quick run-through of the history of Mattel and its Intellivision gaming system. Of course, the controller that we're going to be talking about today is the Intellivision controller, and we will give you a visual representation of one of the games, Donkey Kong, which was actually done by one of its competitors, Coleco. Alright, first thing I want to do is give you an overview of the history of Mattel's Electronics division. When they first began, they decided to go head-to-head with Atari's 2600. Development began in 1978. They did test marketing in Fresno, California in 1979, 4 different games. But it wasn't officially released until early 1980. It was released nationwide, bundled with Las Vegas Blackjack and Poker for an astounding price of $299. It was the first serious rival for Atari, and boasted graphics and sound that were clearly superior to that of the 2600, coming out with such marketing campaigns as the closest thing to the real thing, and comparing it to the 2600 and saying, I didn't know. Yeah, they had real marketing geniuses back then. Like Atari, Intellivision went to Sears and had their had the Intellivision rebundled as the Sears Super Video Arcade, pretty much taking after Atari in sales pitches, trying to get more money out of Sears while running kind of like a coup underneath Atari's nose. In the first year alone, they sold 175,000 units and boasted a library of 35 games thus far. After that success, I mean, up to that point, Mattel had been having a secondary party create all its games. Once it figured out it had a gold mine on its hands, they were like, hey, we need to come up with an in-house first-party developing team. So they basically got a group of 5 of the best programmers and started their own first-party development team in order to keep Atari from hiring these well-established programmers away from their company. They pretty much kept them in a secret location, kept their identities a secret, and referred to them as the Blue Sky Rangers. Nice. By 1982, 2 million units were sold. Third parties such as Activision, iMagic, even Atari and Coleco began making games compatible with the Intellivision. Also in 1981, they started to talk about the keyboard component, and this is one of the big things I have with companies, including even including today's Sony PlayStation 3. Game companies are so obsessed with turning their gaming machine into an all-around family computer, something that you could do business on. You could do it's multi-purpose. Guys, when we want a gaming system, we want a gaming system. I'll go into this rant a lot more in a different episode, because I could launch into a tirade about the whole thing and how, even though Nintendo slinked back to third, they held their ideals as a game company, not a computer company. I hear a lot of Famicom people out there yelling at me right now. I'll get to that. This keyboard component became a big flop because it had a hard time making it out of development. They kept delaying it. I'm all for delays if it's going to make a better product, but eventually the FTC found out about it and started fining them $10,000 a day for false advertising, because they were advertising this thing coming soon, and people were pre-ordering it, and it never came. So in its wake, they created something called the Entertainment Computer System. It's this add-on that was supposed to be very similar to the keyboard component, only it was a little more basic. Basic idea of it was to introduce a basic operating system so that people, kids and adults alike could learn the basics of computer programming. Came with like a thing for a cassette, kind of like the Commodore 64, where they could save and load programs, and a thermal printer. The Intellivoice was also released in 1982. It supported 4 games thus far. they were in working on a fifth one in 1983, but unfortunately with the crash of '83, everything just went fucking haywire. So, thus they phased out the Intellivoice. They also tried to release something called the Intellivision 2, which was a re-release of the Intellivision, which could, with an adapter, could play 2600 games, had detachable controllers. But with ColecoVision coming out, the Atari releasing the 5200, the Vectrex, further subdividing the gaming market, coupled with the influx of just fucking crappy games from third-party companies, it just resulted in the crash of '83, and unfortunately, by early '84, Mattel reported like $300,000 a quarterly loss, and they were one of the first victims of the '83 crash, and it's sad because they were such a great game company. The rights were initially sold to a former marketing executive, Terry Valesky, and he formed something called InTV Corp. They continue to produce what's called the Intellivision 3, which they remanufactured the original Intellivision, and continue to produce like 4 games a year up until 1991 when they officially discontinued it. At that point, Keith Robinson bought software rights, and formed his own company called Intellivision Productions. You may be familiar with the Intellivision Lives line of games now out. They continue to make remake games of the Intellivision packed into one CD or DVD for modern systems, PlayStation 2, PC, PS3, Wii, so forth. All in all, it could be considered the first 16-bit system, since its registers were indeed 16 bits wide for its math microprocessor. And all in all, from the beginning to its demise, 3 million units sold, and boasting a library of 125 games. My personal opinion, I liked it better than the Atari 2600, but you can be the judge. Let's get to some gameplay. As you can see, this is the Intellivision controller right here. It consisted of a disc at the bottom, which was basically a 16-direction D-pad. Although the control is actually not quite analog, not quite digital, but at some point feels kind of weird. It also uses a digital button underneath that you tap for certain games. It also comes with a number pad, which used to piss a lot of people off, 1 through 9. It looks kind of like a frickin' cell phone. On the side, there are 2 action buttons on either side. Normally, you would hold the controller, again, similar like the Atari. You would actually use your right hand to control the disc while the left hand hits the action buttons. But the cool thing is, if you're left-handed, you can easily switch between the 2 positions, especially if the games, have the action buttons pretty much doing the same thing. As we will see in Donkey Kong, pretty much all 4 buttons do the jump action. Very primitive controller. 5200 and ColecoVision would have kind of the same design, only with a joystick instead of the disc. The Intellivision itself, it's attached. In the Intellivision 2, you could detach the controllers, which was really good. But this is one of the problems I have with this controller, other than the sheer oddity of the control itself, was just the fact that I actually had a dog chew my second controller off of my original system. And it was just a nightmare. You can't play 2-player games. Once the controller's chewed off, you're frickin' done. Unless you're a genius and can, find a controller from a different system and patch it in somehow. But, and that's pretty much it for the Intellivision controller. Let's get to some gameplay. Again, not one of the clearest pictures in the whole wide world, but that's what you get. For Donkey Kong, you get to pick the number of players. Obviously, it's going to be 1. Level 1 to 4, I'm an easy gamer. Let's start off with level 1. As you can see, this is one of the first games Mario was ever in. Released by Nintendo Co. Limited. Object of the game is obviously to climb the ladders and scaffolding in order to make it to Pauline. This version is a lot like the arcade, but lacks one thing. In the original version, there were 3 levels of gameplay, 3 different boards that could be played. There we go with the hammer, which we can squash these things with. I used to think they were ducks. I really have no idea what they are. But as you can see, with this used to be the quote-unquote final level, where you would remove the rivets from the scaffolding and bring the big ape Donkey Kong crashing down to the ground below. As you can tell, the Intellivision version is a little more primitive. And it would cycle through the different levels as a bonus timer ticks down. Again, like I said, the difference was the third board from the original arcade version is not present in this version. So it will just continue to cycle through these boards indefinitely until you die, get hit by a barrel, or fall to your death. I mean, the gameplay is rather simplistic, but you know how big a hit Donkey Kong was back in the day. This is kind of the thing that cemented the reputation of gamers or game programmers such as Shigeru Miyamoto, and really brought Nintendo into the forefront as far as video games were concerned. Post '83, when the NES was released, I do own the NES version of Donkey Kong, which I may play in the future to run on a show. And that's pretty much it for my review on Donkey Kong. It's very simple to play, and well, there's not much I can complain about except the awkwardness of the controls, but you already knew that. And that pretty much concludes this week's episode. Don't forget to tune in on Monday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern for the Gamers Playpen on the All Digital Radio Network. That's alldigitalradio.com, and click the Listen Live button. Also, don't forget to tune in next week right here on the YouTube channel for In the Warzone. And don't forget, if you have any questions, comments about the Intellivision, Donkey Kong, or just want to generally spout off about anything video game related or video game history, feel free to drop me an email at inthewarzone@aol.com. And until next time, game over!